What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Brutal Planet Comics. I'm your host, Trey the Brute Daniels. It's another glorious day. It's another episode of the Indie Corner, where I sit down with everybody from the independent communities, writers, artists, directors, producers. Doesn't matter if you're in the game, I want to talk to you. And today I have a brand new guest. I know, right? It's been a while. He is the creator of The Dirty, The Filthy, and The Dead. Give it up, everybody, for Stephen Barone.
How's it going? Nice to be here.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine, and I hope I said your last name the right way.
You sure did. Yep, nailed it.
Awesome. Well, before we jump into all the great work that you got going on, first and foremost, I want to thank you for taking the time to come out here and talk to me and to share all your great work. So, Stephen, let's just get to know you a little bit. Who are you? Where'd you come from? How did we get here?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so my name's Stephen Barone. This is my first comic that I'm doing. I currently reside in Portland, Oregon. So, out here in, PDX, we got quite a bit of a comic book community, which is great. So, a lot of LSCs to choose from. But like yourself, I was once an East Coaster. Grew up in Rhode Island. That's where I started, collecting comic books and stuff back in the 90s boom.
Makes sense.
Getting into, Image when all that stuff came out, Valiant Comics. It's part of all that when, X-Force was new, Deadpool was new.
Oh, yeah.
Some Todd McFarlane, so all that stuff I was into. That was back when I was probably in middle school age, kid, and so that's when I started really like diving into comics.
Nice.
And as I got a little bit older, I was kind of falling out a little bit, but I was still in love with like movies and music, so it was always kind of part of that, the kind of side thing. And then went to school, went to college. And I actually studied film, so I started writing screenplays and stuff like that. But and then at one point I lived in the DC, Baltimore area for a few years. And then from Maryland, I moved out here to Oregon and started writing. I've been writing for a while, mostly short stories. And this is what this comic book is based on. It's one of my short stories that originally started as a flash fiction piece several years ago. Got published in a journal. Piece of it kind of stuck with me that I kind of just expanded into a longer short story. Was trying to get it published into some horror journals, but waiting around to get published in a journal takes a long time. It's
tell me about it.
Sometimes it's not, even if you do get published after maybe waiting a year to find out if they accept you or not, some of the stuff where my stories have been published, they've already folded or no longer exist. So it's like I was kind of getting tired of that. Just didn't seem worth it anymore. But after COVID, I started collecting comics again.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's got into it. Just kind of watching some YouTube channels. Just out of nowhere, I just started watching YouTube channels and finding out about some new titles that were going on. And so I started collecting and just realizing like, I think some of my writing would work well as comic books. And so with this story, The Dirty, The Filthy, and The Dead, I thought, hey, I think this will make a great comic. And so I started, connecting with some illustrators because I write, but I unfortunately don't have the drawing ability. I wish I did.
I have the exact same problem. I can write like Shakespeare, but these are all thumbs, baby. All thumbs.
Writing like Shakespeare is pretty good. So, that's a leg up, to say the least.
But that's great. So at one point in your life, you were pretty much molded into nerd culture, and you just end up falling away, as some people do, and then found the love of it again, which is really awesome. Now, here's the question I have for you, Stephen.
Yeah.
Why did you feel motivated to write comics, even though you've already not you're in pretty much a different medium, writing movie scripts in that direction? Why do you want to go back to the comics and writing them that way?
Well, the movie scripts was cool and all, but I just unless you like really have an in or an agent, I mean that you're just kind of writing them for yourself at that point. I mean, I was kind of entering them into competitions, and had some middling luck with that, but it wasn't really getting me anywhere. And so then I started writing short stories. Some of them gotten published, but like again, like I said, like they'd get published and then the journal would disappear a year later,
Oh
or
yeah.
even sometimes just months later because no one was reading them, or the people, it's kind of a passion project like some comic books are.
Yeah.
And then the people just kind of run out of steam or run out of money. And
Mm.
so
Oh, I
and
know a
then
little
they
something
just,
about that.
yeah, so then they disappear. And so then your work disappears with it too, in a sense.
Yeah.
And but I'd always been told when trying to get my stuff critiqued that I had snappy dialogue, that my dialogue was strong and natural. And so kind of get back into comics, comics being a lot of dialogue, I thought, hey, I might have, the thing for writing comic books. And, with my stories kind of being a bit more, and kind of horror focused,
Sure.
and so forth. I just think it, sort of genre that it would go well with comic books.
And that's a cool transition. Like I've talked to so many people, and a lot of them, like some aren't from my backgrounds. Like like quite a few of them are born into the industry and since the
Mm.
beginning of time and writing comics and stuff. But then there were some like I've known people that are screenwriters. I've known folks that were sculptors that
Uh,
then got into the comic industry. But I'm always curious when somebody steps over into Macedonia, as it were.
yeah.
And that's really cool. That's an interesting way of doing it. So now that actually leads me to my next question. Let's talk a little bit about the dirty, the filthy, and the dead. Well, first of all, the name is crazy good. So, what is the idea behind this story? Where'd you get the title from? Like as I mentioned before in the green room, this makes me feel of like Death on the Nile, all those type of murder mysteries. Where'd you get the idea for this one from?
Yeah, so like you said, Death on Nile, murder mysteries. There is a little bit of that. The premise is that it's a high school reunion that kind of is taking place. The attendees, they kind of don't know. They kind of enter it a little bit confused as to they can't really remember, like, hey, is it time for our class reunion?
Mm.
They kind of go into it just sort of absent-minded. And then there's an MC that comes involved, and he's sort of the antagonist. And basically, these attendees, though, the people who make up the class, are kind of a bit of scumbags. They're kind of they weren't good crop of people in a sense, and so that this person, this antagonist, kind of gives them their comeuppance at the class reunion.
Mm.
But he does it in a sense where he puts on these sort of plays and stage shows that kind of show their past sins, and
Ooh,
and so it's sort of like kind of an anthology mixed in within the story itself.
that's
And so
interesting.
within these little shows, you kind of see what they've done in their past and kind of pay the price at the same time.
That is fascinating. So it's kind of like a revenge tale,
So, mhm.
from a certain perspective, kind of a
Yeah.
revenge tale, with the main antagonist. That's interesting. That's very fascinating. See, I'm always fascinated by the horror genre when it comes to that because I suck at writing horror. So I always find it very interesting. Like one of my good friends, Laurie Calcaterra, she's very good at horror. Like that's her bread and butter, and she's so good at it. And to see someone else dive into the medium, and to get that kind of type of perspective on the horror genre, that's really really cool. I like that. I like the idea of high school reunion comeuppance. That's kind of awesome. I kind of like that. And I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and I guess some of the of the screenplays I've written, some of them were like horror screenplays, so I kind of had some practice doing that beforehand. In the original flash fiction piece that had gotten published, that the original idea comes from, is based on it is sort of this class reunion piece. It's only about like I think 1,000 words,
Mm.
which isn't a horror one, but it has like a kind of sort of a, I guess, bleak kind of point of view. And so I took a piece of that and extended that into the longer short story.
That
Um,
is pretty cool. I like
yeah.
that. And once again, you're able to take away from your growth as a writer or a creator and melding it into something new. That's really awesome. I love seeing when different forms of the creative medium come together in something like that. That's really, really neat. That's awesome. That's awesome. So now that we're chit chatting about it, let's jump in to your Kickstarter and see what's going on over there.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so we're at your Kickstarter here, and it looks like you are killing it right now as of recording. There's 20 days to go, and you've already hit your goal of $900, and you're at 930. So automatically, congratulations to you, my friend. Yeah. That's always tremendous. So looking at just a few of the images that you have here about the reunion, I can see. And you going black and white in this regard, I think is a really, really good call. Did you plan on using colors, or was the idea just this always gonna be black and white?
Kind of always black and white for a couple of reasons. At the time that I was deciding to make it into a comic, I was kind of reading a lot of the Dan Close kind of comics and Charles Burns comics, and so that I like that kind of look for comics, and I think it just goes well with horror as well.
Agreed.
And plus it being my first comic book too, I was like, well, expenses wise and simplicity wise too, I didn't want to overcomplicate it and get too big of a team going. Plus it was also hard just nailing down an illustrator. And so just the idea of, nailing down a colorist as well on top of everything else, I just want to simplify things.
Yeah, trust me. You're going about it the right way. I've been producing comics for a number of years now, and if I can go back some time ago and talk to young me, I'm like, listen, this is the things you need to do, sir. Like, forget the color, forget the hard lettering, forget the exasperated bubbles. Just put the junk on the page and pray to the good Lord that it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg. But for a first issue, that's a really, really smart move, and I think that's really, really good. Do you have plans to expand the series, or do you want this to just be a one-off?
It's going to be a one-off, but it is a mini-series, so it's going to be 4 issues. So
okay.
This is just issue 1, and then hopefully we can get the other 3 issues out after this.
Okay. Well, this is looking good. I am definitely pleasantly impressed with your progress so far and the excellence that you're putting forth. So, bravo to you, good sir. Bravo to you. I really like that. That is pretty darn sweet.
Yeah, and I got really lucky with my illustrator, Miguel. He's been super easy to work with. He's communicative. Easy to communicate with. Just easygoing guy, and he seems pretty passionate about the project as well. So, which is good because I had a couple false starts with other illustrators. So that partly why doing the black and white.
Yeah,
made sense too. So.
I used to use what was that site back then? Was it Z-Wall? I can't remember back then. And it like I put out feelers, and I got like hundreds of returns on those things. I'm just sitting there like, good Lord Almighty. But then I end up settling on an artist, and he's been, over the years, we've become very, very good friends. And like, he had passion for my project, and he was like, can we just do this forever? I'm like, sure, why the heck not? Like I'm not gonna do it forever. But that's always great when you got yourself a solid team. But I'm loving what your Kickstarter is. I'm loving your journey. I love everything about what you're doing here, Steven, especially jumping into I won't call it a new medium, because you were of the initiated, but then joined the initiated once again. So it's really good to see that you came back to your roots, essentially. So that's really, really great and really, really cool. So, Steven, here's my question for you. Now, you mentioned this is going to be a 4-issue mini-series, which, smart on you. Don't be a moron like me and do an 8-issue run. Don't do that. Don't be a fool. How far do you see this franchise going? Let's just say the 4 issues go well. How far do you see this thing going?
In terms of this very title?
Sure.
I don't know, because I did think about trying to expand the story into a novella at first, at one point, because when I was getting some feedback, some people were saying that, maybe try to expand it into a novella and get it published.
Would be
And
interesting.
I mean, I guess there are ways to do it. I didn't work too hard on trying to make that happen, but I did come up with some ideas. It's one of those things, though. I don't want to force something
I
if it
understand.
doesn't come organically. I don't want to just throw something out there and yeah, like I said, force it if the story just doesn't happen naturally. I think it has a pretty solid ending. And the comic's pretty different from the short story. I do offer the short story as one of the tiers for people to read. So even if you read the short story, the comics is going to differ from it.
Okay. Okay. I love that answer. Like, I asked that to all my guests, and everyone always has a different answer. Everyone always has
Yeah.
a different way, because some folks want to eventually turn their comics into animated films. Some of them want
Oh,
to be audio books. Like everybody has a different
yeah.
perspective on that question. That's why I love asking all my guests
I mean,
that
I
question.
got to get this first issue out and
Yes,
then
Steve.
worry about the three. So it's
Yeah,
like,
look, Steven, I know you're already elbow deep in a major undertaking. I've been through the crowdfunding
yeah,
tsunami before,
yeah,
so I'm pretty
uh,
sure all your focus is on number one, and you can't even
yeah.
think outside of your own hand right now.
No, yeah, definitely try not to put the cart before the horse kind of
Yeah,
deal.
that's
So,
awesome. That's awesome. But Steven, I must say, this is a great project. I think this is a great idea. I think the way that you're blending your film ability with modern storytelling and a little bit of a noir, and of course, like I said, right when I look at it, I'm like, Death on the Nile. So if I'm already cooking like that, this is definitely the type of comics that folks would definitely be into, especially those in the horror genre, which people can't get enough of. I wish I was good at it. I think this is a really, really awesome project, and I think you're going to do very, very well, Stephen. Very
cool,
well.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, you're very, very, very welcome. So, Stephen, outside of your Kickstarter, how can folks get in contact with you?
I'm on Blue Sky and I'm on X. And so, yeah, X, I'm just Stephen Barone 5. And I mean, Blue Sky, you could probably just type in my name, Stephen Barone. I'm not as active on there, but I do, post occasionally, but mostly on X.
Okay, excellent, excellent, excellent. So, everybody, that there is Stephen Barone. I'm gonna leave all the links, all his great work, including his Kickstarter, in the description section below. He's been a fantastic guest, and he is awesome. And who am I? Who am I? Who am I? I, of course, am Dre, the Brute Daniels. Follow me on my dope social media platforms. I put them right on my face. They're not there yet, but they will be at the Brute00 on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, if I feel like being silly, on TikTok. And it's my daggone show, so I'm going to plug myself, of course. Trouble the Rhythm Within is still available. The link will be in the description section below, but get it while you can, because I have already started production on the sequel, Trouble Rise of the Children. It is coming out soon. So, everybody, you all have been fan-freaking-tastic. This has been the Indie Corner. Click on all the things that's popping up on the screen right now, and I'll catch you all next time.